"You look stunning tonight, Mrs. Fletcher," the bartender said, sliding my martini across the counter. I smiled tightly as I balanced on my brand new $800 Jimmy Choos that were already causing my feet to scream in silent agony. The shoes Wesley had insisted I buy because appearances matter at the executive level. The shoes I'd purchased specifically for tonight's company awards gala at the Ritz-Carlton, where my husband was being honored for outstanding financial leadership. The husband who is currently across the ballroom, his hand resting just a little too low on Vivian Pierce's back. I took a deliberate sip of my drink, letting the gin burn down my throat. 8 years of marriage, and this is what it had come to. Watching my husband orbit around his 27-year-old financial analyst like she was the sun, and he was a planet desperate for warmth. "It's just your imagination," Wesley had said last month when I mentioned their late nights at the office. "She's just eager to learn," he'd explained when I questioned why her name appeared in every other sentence of his dinner conversations. "You're being paranoid, Mavis," he'd snapped this morning when I found a text notification from her on his phone at 5:30 a.m. I watched as Vivian laughed at something my husband said, her perfect white teeth catching the light, her black dress clinging to a body that had clearly never experienced the joy of pasta or the comfort of bread. The dress probably cost a week's salary for her entry-level position. Interesting. "The presentation starts in 15, Diana Mercer, our CEO, announced as she glided past me. She paused, her eyes following my gaze. "Wesley's been working closely with young Vivian on this quarter's projections. They make quite the team." The knowing glint in Diana's eyes told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't paranoid. I was the last to know. "They certainly do," I replied, my marketing director's smile firmly in place. The smile that had closed million-dollar accounts. The smile that had earned me my corner office on the 32nd floor. The smile that hid the fact that I was quietly dying inside. I excused myself and headed for the ladies' room, locking myself in a stall. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and opened the tracking app I'd installed on Wesley's device 3 weeks ago. Not because I was paranoid, but because I knew. The app that my husband had laughed at when I'd taken that IT security course last year. "What a waste of money," he'd said. "You're in marketing, not tech." The app showed me every message between them for the past month. The late-night texts, the explicit photos, the plans for after the gala tonight at the Colonnade Hotel across town where Vivian had already checked in. I scrolled through their conversations, each word slicing deeper than the last. "Vivian, miss you already. Last night was incredible. Wesley, can't stop thinking about your body. Meeting in 5 will be professional but imagining what's underneath. My husband, the financial genius who apparently couldn't figure out how to delete text messages." I leaned against the cool marble wall, my mind racing. I could confront him. I could create a scene. I could wait until tomorrow and have a civilized conversation with divorce papers already drawn up. Or I could use what I'd learned in that waste of money IT course. The annual awards gala was the biggest corporate event of the year. Every executive, board member, and rising star would be in attendance. Wesley's presentation on the company's financial growth was the centerpiece of the evening, his moment to shine before the promotion announcements next week. The promotion he'd been working toward for 3 years. The promotion that had us putting off starting a family. "Just a little longer, Mavis. Once I make CFO, we can think about kids." I opened the AV control app I'd downloaded earlier that day. During the venue tour this morning, while Wesley was reviewing his presentation, I'd gotten the network information from Jake, the audio-visual technician who'd been all too happy to help when I explained I wanted to surprise my husband with a special slide. My fingers hovered over the screen. Was I really going to do this? I thought about the mortgage on our Back Bay apartment that we'd stretched to afford, because Wesley insisted we needed the right address to impress the right people. I thought about the fertility treatments I'd secretly begun researching because at 37, my biological clock wasn't just ticking, it was sounding alarm bells. I thought about how Wesley had forgotten our anniversary last month, because he was swamped with the quarterly report that apparently required him to take Vivian to dinner at Soralina, according to his credit card statement. I stepped out of the stall, checked my reflection, and reapplied my lipstick. Dior's decisive red. Appropriate. When I returned to the ballroom, Wesley was at the podium, adjusting the microphone. Vivian sat in the front row, gazing up at him adoringly. I slipped into a seat at the back, next to Eloise from HR, who squeezed my hand. "You okay?" she whispered. "You look like you're about to either throw up or commit murder." "Just nervous for Wesley," I lied smoothly. "You know how much this means to him." "Ladies and gentlemen," my husband began, his confident voice filling the room, "it's my great pleasure to present Fletcher Financial's remarkable journey this past year." The first slides appeared behind him. Graphs, charts, projections. All very impressive. All very Wesley. I opened the app on my phone and connected to the presentation system. Jake had explained how simple it was to overlay content remotely. "Like screen sharing on steroids," he'd said with a grin. Wesley was in his element now, pointing out growth trajectories, explaining complex financial strategies in terms even the marketing department could understand. The board members were nodding appreciatively. Diana was smiling. "And as we look to the future," Wesley continued, clicking to what should have been his conclusion slide, "we see unprecedented opportunities for—" His voice faltered as the screen behind him changed. Instead of his carefully crafted conclusion, there appeared a text message exchange. "Wesley, can't wait to feel you tonight. Wife thinks I'm staying late at the office again. Vivian, I'll be waiting in suite 1203, wearing only what you bought me in New York. Wesley, God, you're perfect. Mavis is so boring in bed. You're everything she's not." The room went silent. Wesley froze, his mouth open mid-sentence. Vivian's face drained of color. I stood up slowly, my $800 shoes suddenly worth every penny as they carried me toward the stage. "I believe what my husband is trying to say," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "is that Fletcher Financial has been hiding some significant assets from its shareholders." The silence in the ballroom was so thick you could have served it as an appetizer. Wesley's face transitioned through a spectacular array of colors. First ghostly white, then fire engine red, finally settling on a sickly green that clashed magnificently with his custom-tailored navy suit, the $3,000 suit I'd helped him pick out last weekend, while he texted Vivian under the table. "There's been a mistake," he stammered, frantically clicking the remote as if he could erase what everyone had already seen. "This isn't— I don't—" Another text message appeared on the screen behind him. "Wesley, booked us that weekend in the Hamptons. Told Mavis it's a finance retreat. She believes anything if I use enough industry jargon." I stepped fully onto the stage now, heels clicking deliberately against the hardwood. The sound reminded me of a metronome, or perhaps a timer counting down to detonation. "Is this the quarterly performance you've been working so hard on, darling?" I asked, loud enough for the front tables to hear. "I have to say, your personal growth has been exponential." Diana Mercer rose from her seat, her expression a fascinating blend of horror and morbid curiosity. Harrison Palmer, Wesley's best friend and VP of Operations, was suddenly very interested in his cocktail napkin. And Vivian, poor, perfect Vivian, looked like she was calculating the distance to the nearest exit. "Mavis," Wesley hissed, grabbing my elbow. "What the hell are you doing?" I smiled at him, the same smile I'd given clients right before closing impossible deals. "I'm helping with your presentation, honey. You always said I should be more supportive of your career." With a casual flick on my phone, I scrolled to the next message. "Vivian, when will you leave her? You promised after the promotion." "Wesley, soon. Just need to secure the position first. Don't want to pay alimony from a lower salary bracket." Collective gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Is this for real?" Another voice answered, "Better than Netflix." Wesley's grip on my elbow tightened painfully. "Stop this right now," he growled, his perfect veneers clenched in a grimace. "You're hurting me," I said clearly, knowing the microphone would pick it up. He dropped my arm as if it had burned him. I turned to address the audience, channeling every presentation skill I'd honed over my 15-year marketing career. For those of you unfamiliar with our financial strategy, what you're witnessing is what we in the business world call diversification of assets. A nervous titter ran through the crowd. Diana's eyebrows had practically disappeared into her hairline. Wesley lunged for my phone, but I sidestepped him easily. Those $800 shoes were apparently good for something besides making my feet bleed. "Careful, darling," I cautioned. "You wouldn't want to seem unprofessional." "You've lost your mind," he sputtered, sweat now visibly soaking through his crisp white shirt. "This is my career you're destroying." "Correction," I replied coolly. "This is your career you're destroying. I'm just providing the PowerPoint." I scrolled to a photo Wesley had sent Vivian. Nothing explicit, thank goodness, but him shirtless in our bedroom with the caption, "Thinking of you while she's asleep next to me." The timestamp showed 3:17 a.m. last Tuesday, the night I'd taken NyQuil for my cold. While some of you might question my methods, I continued addressing the audience, I believe in transparency in business. It seems only fair that before the board makes any promotion decisions, they understand Mr. C. Fletcher's approach to loyalty. Wesley had abandoned attempts to grab my phone and was now desperately trying to unplug the projector. Unfortunately for him, the Ritz-Carlton's AV system was wireless. I caught Diana's eye and saw something unexpected there. Not disapproval, but a glimmer of respect. She'd built her reputation on taking no prisoners in business. Perhaps she appreciated seeing the same approach applied to marriage. "Mavis." Eloise had appeared at my side, her HR instincts clearly in crisis mode. "Maybe we should take a break. I have a bottle of Macallan in my office that's perfect for emotional emergencies." "In a minute," I promised. "I'm just getting to the quarterly projections." Wesley had given up on the technology and was now appealing directly to the audience. This is a personal matter. My wife is clearly what, Wesley?" I interrupted. "Paranoid? Imagining things? Making mountains out of molehills?" I flicked to the next screen, showing a hotel receipt from the Colonnade. "Room 1203, booked for tonight under your corporate card. The same corporate card you used last month at Tiffany's." I turned to Vivian, whose mascara was now creating interesting tributaries down her cheeks. "Let me guess. The diamond tennis bracelet you're wearing?" She instinctively covered her wrist, confirming my suspicion. The room had morphed from uncomfortable silence to the electric buzz that precedes a storm. Board members were whispering furiously. Diana had pulled out her phone and appeared to be texting someone urgently. Probably legal. I felt a strange calm wash over me, like I was floating above the scene, watching someone else dismantle 8 years of marriage in front of Boston's corporate elite. "I've spent the last 3 months wondering if I was losing my mind," I said, my voice suddenly softer. "Gaslighting is an interesting phenomenon. You start questioning your own reality. When you find lipstick on a collar, not that anyone actually wears lipstick on collars anymore, that's so 1950s, and he tells you it's from when Janice from accounting hugged him at the office birthday party, you believe him. When he smells like someone else's perfume and claims it's a new air freshener in his car, you believe him. When he's suddenly working late every Thursday, but his location shows him across town, you tell yourself the GPS must be wrong." Wesley's face had gone from green to gray. "Mavis, please," he whispered. "We can talk about this at home." "Home?" I laughed, and it sounded foreign even to my ears. "You mean the home where you've been taking photos of yourself to send to your girlfriend while I'm sleeping? That home?" I flicked to the final message I wanted to share, the one that had broken me when I'd first read it last week. "Wesley, Mavis keeps talking about starting a family, as if I'd want kids with her. When we're together for real, we'll have the family I actually want." The room collectively held its breath. Even Vivian looked shocked by this one. "I've been taking fertility tests," I said quietly, no longer performing for the audience. "Did you know that? While you were planning your future family with someone else, I was trying to figure out why we couldn't conceive. Turns out it's hard to get pregnant when your husband is only sleeping with you on national holidays." Wesley's face crumpled. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Diana stood up then and approached the stage. "I think we've all seen enough," she said firmly, taking the microphone. "Wesley, Vivian, my office, 8 a.m. Monday." She turned to me. "Mavis, would you join me for a drink? I believe we have some matters to discuss." As Diana led me from the stage, I passed Harrison, who looked torn between loyalty to his friend and horror at what he'd witnessed. "You knew, didn't you?" I asked him quietly. He couldn't meet my eyes. I tried to tell him to end it or come clean. He wouldn't listen. "No," I replied, slipping my phone back into my clutch. "He never does." "That was the most spectacular corporate evisceration I've ever witnessed," Diana said, sliding a glass of aged scotch across the private lounge table. "And I once saw the CEO of Pixeltech fire his entire board via interpretive dance." I accepted the drink, noticing my hands had finally stopped shaking. The Ritz-Carlton's executive lounge was blissfully quiet compared to the chaotic ballroom we'd left behind. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Boston's skyline twinkled like it was in on the joke. "I should probably apologize for disrupting your event," I said, not feeling sorry at all. Diana waved dismissively. "Please, you just gave everyone something to talk about until next year's gala. Besides," she leaned forward, lowering her voice, "between us, Wesley's presentation was going to be mind-numbingly dull. Pie charts can only be so exciting." A waiter discreetly placed a small plate of truffle fries between us. Comfort food for the corporate elite. "So," Diana continued, reaching for a fry, "what's your next move, besides the obvious divorce proceedings?" I blinked, surprised by her directness. "I haven't thought that far ahead. The presentation was as far as my revenge planning went." Diana studied me over the rim of her glass. "Really? Because that seemed remarkably well executed for a spontaneous act of marital destruction." I felt a small smile tug at my lips. "Marketing director, remember? I know how to put together a compelling presentation." "Indeed you do." Diana's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Did you know Wesley was being considered for CFO?" "He mentioned it once or twice an hour for the past year," I replied dryly. "And did you also know you were on our shortlist for the newly created Chief Marketing Officer position?" The scotch I'd just sipped burned a path down my throat as I choked in surprise. What? "No. We've been quietly restructuring the executive team. Your campaign for the Thornton account single-handedly increased our market share by 12% last quarter. The board took notice." She paused, examining a perfectly manicured nail. "Of course, this complicates things. Because I just publicly humiliated your CFO candidate, who, as it happens, was sleeping with a junior employee and misusing company resources to fund his affair." Diana's smile was razor-sharp. "I'm actually more impressed by your actions tonight, not less. But optics are important." My mind was racing. A C-suite position had been my goal for the past 5 years. And here it was, potentially within reach, right as my personal life imploded. "Wesley will try to spin this," I said, thinking aloud. "He'll claim I violated his privacy, that I'm unstable, emotional. Yes, men do tend to fall back on that particular narrative." Diana's tone suggested intimate familiarity with the concept, "which is why you need to control the story starting now." My marketing instincts kicked in. Get ahead of the narrative. "Exactly." She pulled out her phone. "First, you need legal protection. Not just for the divorce, but for your career. My attorney, Margot Sinclair, handles both. She'll meet you tomorrow morning at 10. She's a piranha in Prada." I found myself taking notes on a cocktail napkin as Diana continued. "Second, you need documentation of everything. The affair, any financial impropriety, the works. Based on tonight's performance, I'm guessing you've already got receipts?" "I've been collecting evidence for months," I admitted. I wasn't sure if I was being paranoid until I found messages about their weekend in New York 3 weeks ago. After that, I got thorough. Diana nodded approvingly. "Smart woman. Forward everything to Margot." "And speaking of New York, wasn't Wesley supposed to be at the Richardson conference then?" "Yes, on the company's dime. He claimed all the receipts were business expenses." Diana's smile turned predatory. "How interesting. Our finance department will need to review that. In fact, we might need a complete audit of his expense reports." The implications were clear. Wesley's career at Fletcher Financial was effectively over. "What about Vivian?" I asked. "The analyst. She'll be reassigned pending an investigation. Office romances happen, but not when they involve company credit cards and lying about business trips." My phone buzzed with a text from Eloise. Wesley stormed out. "Vivian in bathroom crying. Everyone talking. You okay? I showed Diana the message. Your friend in HR? She asked. When I nodded, she continued. Good. You'll need allies. But be selective. Some people will choose sides based on who they think will win. I thought about our social circle, the couples we'd vacationed with, the friends who'd dined at our table. Most were connected to Wesley's finance world. I'd likely lose them all. I should warn you, Diana said, interrupting my thoughts. Wesley will go home tonight, and his first move will be damage control. A cold realization washed over me. He'll try to empty our accounts. Diana nodded. Men like Wesley panic when their carefully constructed facades crumble. They grab what they can and run. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Our joint checking account already showed a pending transfer of $50,000 initiated 30 minutes ago, right after I'd left the stage. That didn't take long, I muttered, showing Diana the screen. Call the bank's emergency line now. Report potential fraud. Use the words suspicious activity and unauthorized transfer. I'll step out to give you privacy. As Diana discreetly moved to another corner of the lounge, I made the call. 20 minutes and some creative explanation later, the transfer was frozen pending investigation, and I'd initiated the process to remove Wesley from all our joint accounts. Diana returned as I was hanging up. Handled. For now, but he'll try again. Which is why you need to secure everything tonight. She pulled out a small notepad and began writing. Here's what you're going to do. After we finish here, you're checking into the Four Seasons under my corporate account. I'll have someone escort you home tomorrow to collect your essentials when Wesley's at work. I stared at her, puzzled by her investment in my situation. Why are you helping me like this? Diana's expression softened slightly. 20 years ago, I was you. Different company, same story. My then husband, our sales director, was sleeping with his secretary. So cliché it's almost embarrassing. When I found out, I confronted him privately, cried, begged him to explain. Want to know what happened? I nodded. He took everything, cleaned out our accounts, claimed I was mentally unstable, and convinced the board I was a liability. I lost my job, my reputation, and half of my retirement savings. She sipped her scotch. I promised myself if I ever saw another woman in that position, I'd make sure history didn't repeat itself. The weight of her words settled between us. This wasn't just professional courtesy. It was a sort of generational sisterhood. There's something else you should know, Diana continued. The board meeting to finalize the CFO position is on Monday afternoon. Wesley was going to be recommended, despite my reservations about his creative accounting. Your revelations tonight have created an opening. For who? I asked, though I was beginning to see where this was heading. Traditionally, we've kept finance and marketing separate. But our company is evolving. We need leadership that understands both the numbers and the narrative. She leaned back, studying me. The CMO position is still yours if you want it, but there might be another option on the table, depending on how the next 72 hours unfold. My mind whirled with possibilities. I'd always been good with numbers. It was how I measured campaign success, optimized spend, calculated ROI. I'd even completed that financial management certificate last year, the one Wesley had dismissed as cute. I need to think about it, I said carefully. Of course, but don't think too long. Diana stood, signaling our conversation was ending. Opportunities like revenge are dishes best served promptly. As I gathered my clutch, she handed me her business card with a room number scrawled on the back. The Four Seasons reservation is under my name. The front desk has instructions. And Mavis, document everything Wesley does in the next few days. Every call, every text, every attempted financial transaction. I will, I promised. Diana's parting smile was both encouragement and warning. Remember, men like Wesley expect women to fall apart. Your power lies in doing exactly the opposite. As I stepped into the elevator, my phone lit up with Wesley's name. 15 missed calls, 7 voicemails, 23 texts. The most recent message simply read, "You've ruined everything. Hope you're happy." For the first time all night, I genuinely smiled. Not yet, I whispered to my reflection in the elevator's mirrored wall. But I'm getting there. The Four Seasons bed was so comfortable, It felt like sleeping on a cloud manufactured specifically for heartbroken executives. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the distant hum of Boston coming to life on a Saturday morning. For a blissful moment, I forgot everything. Then my phone pinged with a news alert. Fletcher Financial Executive Scandal. Viral video shows, CFO candidate exposed by wife. Apparently, someone had recorded my impromptu presentation. The video had 1.2 million views already. Fantastic, I muttered, scrolling through the article. I've gone from marketing executive to YouTube sensation overnight. My phone rang. An unknown number. Mrs. Fletcher? Margot Sinclair. I believe we have an appointment at my office in an hour. Diana's attorney sounded exactly as I'd imagined. Crisp, efficient, slightly terrifying. I've seen the video, she continued without waiting for my response. Bring every piece of evidence you have. And fair warning, your husband has already contacted one of my competitors. By 9:45, I was seated in the chrome and glass fortress of Sinclair Legal on the 40th floor of the Prudential Tower. Margot turned out to be a petite woman in her 50s with a silver bob and the focused intensity of a missile guidance system. So, she said, after reviewing my evidence for 20 minutes, we have documented infidelity, financial impropriety with company resources, and attempted asset hiding. The courts will love this. Her smile was all teeth. Diana mentioned you might also be interested in protection beyond the divorce? My career, I confirmed. Wesley has connections throughout the financial industry. Margot nodded, typing rapidly. We'll draft a cease and desist regarding any defamatory statements about your professional capabilities. She looked up sharply. Now, about your home. Our apartment in Back Bay, I clarified. We bought it 3 years ago. Do you want it? I considered this. The apartment was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, a soaking tub I'd spent many evenings in with a glass of wine, contemplating my crumbling marriage. No, I decided. Too many memories. Good, we'll liquidate it. The Boston real estate market is excellent right now. She made another note. What about revenge? I blinked, surprised by her directness. Excuse me? Beyond the public humiliation which was, she paused, allowing herself a small smile, admittedly masterful. Are there other ways you want him to feel the consequences of his actions? Something in her tone suggested this wasn't her first scorched earth divorce. I just want what's fair, I said carefully. Fair is subjective, Mrs. Fletcher. I prefer justified. She slid a folder across her desk. Wesley's Company Holdings. Diana sent them over this morning. I opened it to find a detailed breakdown of Wesley's stock options, retirement accounts, and bonus structures. He had substantially more squirreled away than I'd realized. He never told me about these, I said, pointing to an offshore account with nearly $300,000. Margot's expression was stone. Men like your husband often maintain contingency funds, usually for contingencies wearing size 2 dresses and calling it inappropriate hours. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with Eloise's face. Take it, Margot encouraged. I need to prepare some documents anyway. Mavis, Eloise hissed when I answered. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm fine. With my lawyer. What's happening at the office? Absolute chaos. Wesley showed up at 7 a.m. demanding access to his office, but security had already been instructed to escort him only to HR to collect his personal items. He's been fired? I couldn't hide my surprise. Not officially. Administrative leave pending investigation. But the finance department is crawling through his expense reports like termites through rotten wood. She lowered her voice further. They found at least $42,000 in unexplained charges over the past year. First-class upgrades, luxury hotel suites for solo business trips, jewelry purchases coded as client appreciation gifts. A cold certainty settled in my stomach. All for Vivian. Bingo. Oh, and that corporate apartment he claimed was for visiting executives? Security found his personal items there. And Vivian's. The revelations kept coming. Wesley hadn't just been cheating emotionally and physically. He'd been systematically defrauding the company to fund his double life. The board is having an emergency meeting right now, Eloise continued. Diana asked me to tell you to keep your phone on. After Eloise hung up, Margot slid a stack of papers toward me. Divorce filing. I've expedited everything. Sign where indicated. As I signed page after page, my phone buzzed with texts from friends and colleagues who had seen the video. Some expressed shock, others support, a few uncomfortable confusion about whose side they should take. Harrison's message surprised me most. He tried to convince me to tell everyone you've been unstable for months. I refused. Some lines you don't cross, even for friends. Let me know if you need anything. By noon, the paperwork was filed, and I was sitting in a sleek downtown cafe with Eloise, who had taken an early lunch to meet me. I can't believe this is my life now, I said, pushing a salad around my plate. Yesterday, I was planning which dress to wear to the gala. Today I'm trending on Twitter under Dr. CFO Cheater Exposed. You're also trending under Darsh Marketing Genius and Darsh Corporate Queen, Eloise pointed out. The internet is divided on your methods but impressed with your execution. My phone rang again. Diana. Mavis, she said without preamble. The board meeting has been moved up. Today at 3 p.m. Can you be here? For what purpose? I asked, though I already suspected. To discuss your future with the company, of course, and to review the forensic accounting report on your husband's creative financing. When I arrived at Fletcher Financial's gleaming headquarters at 2:45, the security guard, who had always just nodded politely before, actually stood up. Mrs. Fletcher, he said with something like awe. Ms. Mercer said to send you straight up. The executive floor was hushed when I stepped off the elevator. Elizabeth, Diana's assistant, hurried over. They're waiting for you in the boardroom, she whispered. And just so you know, everyone in admin thinks you're a legend. The boardroom fell silent when I entered. 12 pairs of eyes, the entire executive leadership team and board of directors, turned to me. Diana sat at the head of the table, imperious and unreadable. Mavis, she said, gesturing to the empty chair beside her. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Please, sit. As I took my seat, I noticed a thick report in front of each person, stamped, Confidential Internal Audit Findings. Diana didn't waste time. The board has reviewed the preliminary audit of Wesley Fletcher's financial activities over the past 18 months. The findings are troubling. Martin Dawson, head of the board and traditionally Wesley's biggest supporter, looked ashen. Mrs. Fletcher, first let me express the board's regret for the personal situation you've endured. Had we known? You didn't know because Wesley was very good at what he did, I interrupted. Both the deception and the creative accounting. A few nervous chuckles around the table. Diana slid a document toward me. The audit revealed approximately $176,000 in misappropriated funds over 18 months. Personal expenses disguised as business costs, fictional client meetings, unauthorized use of the corporate jet to take Ms. Pierce to Aspen for a weekend. Each revelation landed like a hammer blow. The Wesley I thought I knew, ambitious but ethical, had never existed. We've frozen all company-related accounts and benefits, Diana continued. His employment is officially terminated, effective immediately. We'll be pursuing recovery of the misappropriated funds. Martin cleared his throat. There's also the matter of the CFO position. Diana's smile was subtle but unmistakable. Indeed, given recent events, we find ourselves without a candidate. However, the board has been discussing alternatives. She nodded to Martin, who opened another folder. Mrs. Fletcher, Mavis, your background in marketing is impressive, but what many don't know is your dual degree in finance and marketing from Wharton, your recent certification in financial management, your creation of the ROI tracking system our department now uses company-wide. I felt heat rising in my cheeks. They'd done their homework. We're restructuring, Diana explained, creating a new position that bridges financial strategy and brand value. Executive Vice President of Strategic Growth. Martin leaned forward. It's yours if you want it. Same compensation package that was prepared for the CFO position, with some adjustments to the stock options. Upward, of course. The irony wasn't lost on me. Wesley had cheated, lied, and stolen to secure a position that was now being offered to me. My phone buzzed with a text. Wesley, you've destroyed my life. Hope you're satisfied. I glanced at the message. then back at the expectant faces around the table. When can I start? 6 months can change everything. The Wall Street Journal called it the Fletcher pivot, how a Boston financial services firm transformed its leadership culture overnight after a viral boardroom scandal. The Harvard Business Review requested an interview about women in finance. Even the Boston Globe ran a feature. From betrayed wife to C-suite, how Mavis Fletcher turned personal disaster into professional triumph. None of them got the full story, of course. The messiness. The nights I cried myself to sleep in my new downtown loft. The therapy sessions where I unpacked years of subtle manipulation. The friends who quietly disappeared from my life, choosing Wesley's version of events over mine. But sitting here now, in my corner office with its view of Boston Harbor, I can finally appreciate the strange gift that betrayal gave me. Quarterly projections are ready for your review, my assistant announces, placing a folder on my desk. And Ms. Mercer asked if you're still on for dinner tonight. Diana and I have a standing monthly dinner. Part mentorship, part friendship, part survivors club. She calls it strategic alliance maintenance. I call it wine therapy with someone who gets it. I flip through the projections. Our growth has exceeded expectations for the 3rd consecutive quarter. The restructuring I implemented has streamlined operations while expanding market reach. Turns out, understanding both numbers and narratives is exactly what Fletcher Financial needed. My phone pings with a text from Eloise. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate your Boston Business Journal cover? Bringing cupcakes with Wesley's face on them so we can eat his expression. I smile. Some friendships survived the explosion and grew stronger in the aftermath. My calendar reminder flashes. Closing on Back Bay apartment, 3 p.m. The real estate market had indeed been excellent, as Margot predicted. The apartment sold for 22% above our purchase price, with my half of the proceeds funding my new home and a long overdue trip to the Amalfi Coast. Wesley got his share too, though significantly reduced after the divorce settlement accounted for his creative accounting with our joint funds. Last I heard, he was interviewing for mid-level positions at smaller firms in Chicago. The viral video and subsequent financial scandal had made him untouchable in Boston. Vivian fared better. After a brief suspension, she transferred to our Seattle office. Her tear-streaked apology email claimed she never knew the extent of Wesley's deception, both to me and the company. I neither forgave nor condemned her. At 27, making catastrophic romantic mistakes seemed almost a developmental requirement. I closed the projections folder and walked to the window. From 40 floors up, Boston looks like a perfect miniature city, problems invisible from this height. My office phone buzzes. Mrs. Fletcher, there's a delivery for you. The receptionist appears moments later with a stunning arrangement of white lilies and blue hydrangeas. Secret admirer? She asks with a smile. Hardly. I open the small card nestled among the blooms. 1 year ago today, you helped me choose these flowers for our anniversary dinner. You were right. They looked perfect on the table. You always had better taste than me. I'm sorry for everything. The flowers, the exact arrangement I'd selected for our last anniversary, which he'd claimed were his idea, are both beautiful and grotesque in their calculated sentimentality. Classic Wesley, remembering a date only when it served him. I consider the card for a moment, then drop it into my shredder. The flowers I send to the children's ward at Massachusetts General Hospital. Some gifts you don't need to keep, I tell my puzzled receptionist. That evening, as Diana and I sip Cabernet at an exclusive waterfront restaurant, she raises her glass. To 1 year of the new Fletcher Financial. Has it been that long since the gala? I ask, though I know the exact count. 365 days since I walked into the Ritz-Carlton wearing those $800 shoes and walked out with the remnants of my marriage in flames. 1 year since you showed everyone what happens when someone underestimates a woman with technical skills and receipts. Diana corrects with her signature razor smile. The board still talks about it in hushed tones. We laugh, and the conversation shifts to acquisition strategies and market expansion. Business talk that once would have bored me now energizes me. Another unexpected gift from the wreckage. Later, as my driver takes me home, I scroll through emails and find one from Harrison. Wesley asked about you today. Told him you're thriving. He looked physically pained. Thought you'd want to know. I closed the email without responding. Harrison means well, but I no longer need updates on Wesley's pain to validate my success. My new apartment welcomes me with silence. No lingering scent of someone else's perfume. No questioning whether late meetings are actually meetings. Just peace, space, and choices that are entirely mine. On my nightstand sits the framed quote Eloise gave me when I moved in. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. J.K. Rowling. As I step onto my balcony with a nightcap, Boston's lights twinkling below, I reflect on how spectacularly a life can implode and rebuild in the span of a year. The $800 shoes sit in a shadow box on my wall, a reminder that sometimes the most painful purchases yield unexpected returns. I raise my glass to the city. Here's to having receipts. I whisper to no one in particular, and knowing exactly when to present them.